So welcome to Seen and Solved. I'm your host, Tim Pennington. Today I'm joined by Jason Potts, the finishing fixer, a guy who has made a career out of solving the kinds of challenges that stall production lines. And in this episode, Jason tackles a powder coating operation running at high speeds, facing long lead times, and relying on chemistry that just wasn't cutting it. He's got a story that ends with a brand new cleaner, a faster line, and one very satisfied customer. So let's get into it.
You're listening to the Seen and Solved podcast, brought to you by Hubbard-Hall. Better results, less chemistry.
So, Jason, you had a customer that was experiencing long lead times and high pricing from who they were getting their chemistry from. Tell us about this. What was all the problems that they were having?
Yeah, so we were, myself and Tom Silvino were visiting a prospect in the powder coat pretreatment. And when we were there, they expressed their satisfaction of the lead times they have with their current cleaner, lead times of up to 3 months. They also had to add a booster product for it to work. So it wasn't ideal for what they needed. And they gave us a challenge of putting in a cleaner that would, less lead time and no booster product. So what we did is we had to source out a cleaner. And the cleaner we used after taking a look at it was our AquaEase PL 918. That was the first cleaner we put in there.
Let me go back a second. So you said they were using a booster. Why did they need to use a booster? And what did all that, was that a separate product that they were using for that?
Yeah, so it was a separate product. So you have your standard chemistry of the cleaner, and the booster was basically a booster to help it clean. So what would happen, there were certain parts coming through the line, and the line was about twice as fast as the industry standard. So it's a lot faster line. There was a lot of oil, and they needed to add this booster in order to make it work to get these particular parts clean. And it was just it was difficult for them to add that all the time. So they wanted to get away from the booster and basically just use a one and done cleaner as opposed to adding a booster.
Right. Yeah, you don't want people continually going in and maintaining these lines. That's when you're going to be running into any types of problems. People forget it, they put too much or too less, things like that, right? I mean, that can lead to big problems.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what they run into.
Right. So I guess when you first got in there, saw what was going on, what was your first step? What's the first step when you take how you're going to attack this problem for them?
First step was actually we take a look at the actual nozzles, make sure they're making contact with the parts correctly. So once we determined that, we looked at the oil that was in the oil skimmer, made sure that what they were currently using was running at the right concentration and temperature, which was all checked out. So it led us back to, it's not the right cleaner for that. And that's when we brought in our PL 918, AquaEase PL 918 for that particular application.
Not the right problem. Is it the substrate, the contamination? What was it that made it not be the right product?
The combination, the substrate itself, when we looked at it under the microscope, you could see it was a very rough surface and it was holding a lot of oil. The oil was a very thick oil. And along with the line speed, really made it difficult to get these parts clean. And we don't want to slow their line speed down. That's how they base their quotations on and how much they can do. So we needed to develop something that would actually work at that line speed.
Out of this, you come up with a new product, right? A new AquaEase product out of this.
So the PL 918 is what we originally put in. That's one of our top of the line soak spray cleaners. And we thought, well, this is going to be easy. We put this cleaner in. It's a stock product. It's priced well. And we put it in. It worked. And what happened was that we started to see the same thing they saw with their current cleaner. They had to add, we had to add a booster to it. Again, it's not ideal to do that. So what we did was, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. And we had fortunately just put in our powder coat pre-treat line in our Inman, South Carolina facility.
Oh, so your pilot line you've got down there, right?
So what we were able to do was take small parts off of that, the large parts, and mimic the line speed, the parts, and then try other cleaners at our facility. Before we didn't want to throw another cleaner in there right away. We want to make sure it's going to work. So Mike Valenti and his team ended up trying several different cleaners. Come to find out, none of those cleaners really worked. And then Michael did a great job and developed the AquaEase PL 930. That was the cleaner that showed the best cleaning abilities at that line speed with that particular part, and we were able to determine that by the pilot line.
Was this sort of a mad scientist deal where you kind of go in the lab and you just trial and error till you get it to?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, he used a lot of probably looking at old formulas. He identified the oil. He took a lot of pictures of the parts to try to understand, what was going on, the actual substrate itself. And with all of that, and the cleaner he developed was, by the way, unbelievable. It is just a great cleaner right now. So happy with it.
There you go. You said you were looking at substrate through the microscope. Is that the new microscope? I know I talked to Connor about that, where you can really see deep into and see where, where things are being put onto the parts. Is that what you were using?
Yep, that's our Keon's microscope. And it gives detailed pictures of what we're looking at. It's been very helpful for us since we've purchased that. And I'll use it often. I know Connor uses it quite a bit too.
I mean, before that, I'm not going to ask you what you used because it was all visual pretty much, right?
Yeah, visual. You look for water breaks and say, well, if it's water break and it's not working, what's causing the water break? No, just let's try something different. It's just basically trial and error, and having a pilot line is a huge, huge help.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, to do this previously, would you try it on your customer's line to try it out to see, which is not optimal because you're kind of using. You got to be there. You got to, maybe, taking up space on their line and everything. So to have the pilot line has got to be a huge asset to be able to really test out and see if it's working properly. Then
it allows us to look a little deeper into what we can do to help them, because we're going to put it on our line and try to develop, whatever we can to make it work, as opposed to put it on their line and trying to make changes, because if it doesn't work, you have downtime, you have disposal cost, angry customers. So it really is a huge help. So it definitely helps. How
often do you come across where they had such a fast line speed? I mean, everybody wants to go that fast, right? Sometimes you just can't go that fast, but because to get the proper treatment and the heating and everything. Is that unusual for something to see it going that fast? It's unusual.
Yeah, it was not common at all.
Did you discuss backing it off a little bit, or is that?
We did. We did a little bit, and there was resistance there, and I get it. You have resistance because they've already quoted the parts out for what they're based on their line speed. And it's like, we probably could have slowed it down and made it work, but we had a great team that put together this cleaner, and it made it work at that line speed, and they were super happy with it.
So the 930, right? That's what it's called, right? The 930. Where do you see this working? What type of substrates or what type of contaminants or what type of would you think that this would be targeted for?
It works on all substrates. You have to be careful if you have any kind of galvanized work going through. You might want to have a little less exposure time to it. But it's for all substrates, all oils. It's a spray. Right now, we're marketing it as a spray cleaner for the powder coat industry. So what we'll look at is, and this line's a pretty big line. We'll look at lines of this size, and then we'll promote this cleaner going into these to the different facilities. And also on top of this, I forgot to mention that because we were able to develop the cleaner, we also put our emerald zirconium in too. So we have the zirconium in there also for them, and our sealer. So it really, by helping them out with that cleaner, awarded us more business.
Kind of just to summarize, they kept their line speed, which I'm sure that was number one of their priority is to keep that throughput, right? They don't have to go in and add any boosters or go in and measure and have anybody tinker with it at all, right? With that, Yeah. And like I said, they're probably a better cleaner than what they had before, certainly with that. Well, I guess it wasn't really cleaning before, let's just say that. But they're getting a really good clean out of this now with that.
It's a very good cleaner. It's competitively priced, and we stock it. So their lead times, that's the other huge thing. They don't have those big lead times that they're fighting with, because everybody's trying to keep their stock low. I get it. You don't want to hold too much stock, so you kind of rely on your supplier. So we were able to stock it here in Waterbury and get it to them when needed.
Sounds good. Well, listen, Jason, appreciate you taking time out and explaining that to us. I know that sounds like you said those parameters of speed, line speed, and kind of using lesser chemicals without having to use a booster paid off. You guys did a great job. Appreciate you telling us about it.
Yeah, thanks for talking with me.
Thanks for listening to Seen and Solved by Hubbard-Hall. For more episodes, visit hubbardhall.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to like and subscribe, rate and review, and join us on social media. Produced by AquaEase.